Hello and welcome to another episode of the PropSwap podcast. We are your hosts, Ian Epstein
and Luke Pergande.
And we are also the founders of PropSwap, the first marketplace to buy and sell sports bets. Thank you so much for joining us this week. We've got another great episode for you. We will get into a recap of the NFL Week 1 action. We will talk a little baseball Cy Young Awards. That's coming down to the wire. But first, I thought we would start with a little college football and a story that we have not discussed so far in this podcast, but has really taken the whole entire sports world by storm, and that is the Colorado Buffaloes. It is prime time right now in Boulder and a little bit in Denver as well, where I am, but it is by far the biggest story in sports right now. Just to give you a little recap of the numbers in terms of, it cannot be overstated how bad the Buffs were last year, how the public was backing Colorado, but the sharps and the sports books were, thought it was kind of all smoke and mirrors a little bit. So here's just a few numbers to talk about the progression of Colorado within just 2 games being played. Colorado, of course, is 2-0. They beat TCU week 1 as a 20-point underdog. And then last week, they beat Nebraska at home 36-14. And we can get into that game in a second. But Colorado, before the season, was 400-1 to win the championship. They are now 120-1 at FanDuel. I've seen actually lower odds at other books. They were 150-1 to win the Pac-12. They are now 25-1 to win the conference. Deion's son, who's the quarterback, Shedeur Sanders, he was 200-1 to win the Heisman, now 30-1. And Travis Hunter, the two-way stud who plays receiver and corner, he was 300-1 to win the Heisman before the season, and now down to 70-1. And just to go to show you how much action has come in, at BetMGM, Shedeur Sanders has the highest handle percentage. 17% of the Heisman bets have been placed on Shedeur Sanders, and second highest ticket count. 18% of the bets have been placed on Sanders, and basically it's similar numbers for Travis Hunter, who's second in handle percentage and first in ticket count. So the money has come in before the season, after game 1, and now after game 2, and it's just been a wild story. So what are your thoughts so far on the Buffs?
Yeah, I just to add to DraftKings. So DraftKings must have more action on Colorado and Shedeur than FanDuel does. Colorado 80-1 to win the national championship, DraftKings, and then Shedeur even lower than FanDuel, 20-1 to win the Heisman. So I mean, it's they are getting. I mean, can you imagine Shedeur's Heisman odds get down to single digits next week, and the national championship odds get down to like 40-1? I mean, you have Alabama at 33-1 to win the national championship. Can you imagine if Colorado surpasses Alabama? I mean, that would be 3 weeks into the season. Who would have, you probably can't parlay that, but imagine the odds on that. Bama to be lower than Colorado after week 3.
Yeah. And so, the difference of the odds, I'm sure maybe that's partly based on risk, but also I think, and I was talking with some people about this in regards to the spread against Nebraska, where I think some of these sports books are still kind of clinging on to whatever their preseason power rating was in terms of Colorado and some of these players. When the Colorado-Nebraska spread opened a week ahead of time, this was after Colorado had already upset TCU and Nebraska had lost their first game. The sports books opened Nebraska as a small favorite at Colorado. And I saw that, and I probably should have pounced on it, but I ended up not betting it. I did bet the game, but only at halftime of the Nebraska game. But anyone with eyeballs should have, and seeing, the response online, should have known to make Colorado the favorite there, right? Like, there's no way that that people were not going to bet Colorado no matter what the number was. And so I think, and this is frequent with a lot of sports and in a lot of instances, but you can find value early in the season because the sports books are slow to adjust to what, to adjust off of what their preseason power rankings were, and if you can adjust faster than they are, then then you can find some value there. So, perhaps, FanDuel is just kind of clinging on to the fact that this team is such a long shot before the season.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. We'll save this story for another podcast. Hopefully Colorado keeps winning, but I was on a golf trip this past weekend for a bachelor party that my groom's been in a month or so, and this one of the kids there has a $1,000 wager on Shedeur Sanders at 40-1 odds to win the Heisman. So you can bet that will be showing up on our website in a few weeks if he continues his ascent.
Yeah, we've already seen some crazy Heisman tickets get listed for sale, as well as Colorado. Nothing. They're still a little overpriced, so we'll hold off on that. But yeah, we'll get into the story of that $1,000 bet on Sanders in another episode. But before we move on from college, I also thought we should talk about the Texas Alabama game. I had given out get on Texas and Staker swap 2 weeks ago, and talked about how Texas almost beat Alabama last year. They were only a 7-point underdog in Alabama this year, and I thought they had a legit shot. And that was a great game Saturday night. Just talking about some of those numbers as well. Texas was 25-1 before the season. That's the number I gave out on Staker Swap. They are now down to 10-1 to win the national championship. Texas quarterback Quinn.
Sorry to interrupt you. Making money already, right? I mean, you can already make 2.5 extra money and care less how the rest of the season goes. So that's exactly why we give out these picks. But sorry, go ahead.
Right, and just on that point, it's like if you do hold that Texas bet, and I get you're super pumped up that they just beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa, and you should feel confident. But now we start getting in the 10-1 range in single digits. There's not gonna be a huge additional margin to go, right? Like there's a higher risk of an upset down the road than there is somehow Texas finding themselves to be at 3-1 at the end of the season. So now that they're down to 10-1 and maybe you start inching into the single digits, I would agree. Now is the time to sell. This is not gonna be my stake or swap pick to say swap Texas just yet, but I would just add that to my card, as they say. Because you 2.5x on your money, like time to get out and move to the next one.
3 weeks in, take your money, invest in the rest of the board. Grab some Heisman tickets. There's so much more cool stuff to bet on, and you still have 75% of the season left to go, 80% of the season left.
Yeah. Free up some capital and make some other bets. Quinn Ewers, the Texas quarterback, he was 20-1 after week 1 to win the Heisman. Now he's down to 10-1, so that's a double up. And then, as you mentioned, Alabama took a huge tumble on the odds boards. They were 6-1 to win the championship preseason and before this game, and now they are 33-1. Basically, almost pretty much writing off Alabama from having any chance of doing well in the SEC and making the playoff.
I don't see it. I don't see the future for Alabama at least with this quarterback. This kid Jalen Milroe is their current quarterback. He looked horrendous, absolutely horrendous. Terrible decision making. He is fast. I will definitely give him that. He is fast, but in Alabama's offense, certainly for the last 15 years, you got to have a quarterback that can at least make smart decisions and make some accurate passes. He can do neither. To me, I think there's a very heavy debate to go to Tyler Buchner, who's the Notre Dame quarterback who got injured in the first game of the year last year, got replaced by Drew Pine. But Tyler Buchner, the sooner they go to him, the better, because I can't imagine that Saban and Tommy Rees, the former OC for Notre Dame, now the OC at Bama. It's a funny meme going around of him just having his head in his palm, just shaking his head, similar to last season at Notre Dame when he had to deal with that quarterback situation. So, yeah, Jalen Milroe, the Alabama quarterback, is not the answer. I think the sooner they move on from him, the better they'll be.
Yeah, I was going to mention, I'm old enough to remember a couple years ago where Alabama benched their starting quarterback in the in the national championship game a guy named Jalen Hurts and put in the backup a guy named Tua Tagovailoa, and who ended up coming to win the championship. So I'm not going to just completely write Alabama off, because again, I don't know college football well enough to like know how skilled that the backup is necessarily, but it would never shock me if Alabama just brought in their backup. It's like, oh yeah, he's a 5-star, like he could be a stud. So again, until they lose that second game, and even with I could see a 2-loss SEC team still making the playoffs. So I'm not ready to write Alabama off just yet. But look, between Colorado's ascendance, Texas going from 25 down to 10-1, Alabama, still, I think, I'm not gonna write off their 33-1. Just a ton of odds movement already in 2 weeks into the college football season. So everyone loves to kind of say, college football, it's always the same teams or whatever. But as we've talked about before, TCU last year, Cincinnati the year before that, I would not be shocked again if we see some long shot this year make it to the playoff. And the Heisman is going to be also super interesting as well. But that Colorado USC game in a couple weeks is going to be huge. So just super excited to have college football have some parity in college football. Moving on, let's talk a little baseball action. The NL Cy Young has been probably the best race of all the player awards. A lot of the other ones are kind of already sealed up, but the NL Cy Young is definitely up for grabs. Back in late June, a PropSwap customer placed a $500 bet on Blake Snell to win the Cy Young at 50-1 odds. Since that date the bet was placed, Snell is 10-3 with an ERA of 1.67 and 116 strikeouts in 15 starts since that bet was placed. Last week, that customer sold the ticket on PropSwap for $15,500. So that is a 30x return for the seller. Meanwhile, the buyer received odds of -155. That was compared to odds of -195 at Sportsbook. So that is what we call a win-win. That's exactly how you draw it up. 30x return for the seller and significantly better odds for the buyer. And just one other caveat I'll say is like it is a regular season award, which means that it ends at the end of September. But for some weird reason, baseball does not announce these winners until after the World Series. It's like it is so baseball to be like, to not capitalize on, everyone in the month of October is focused on baseball, but then they wait until November to release these awards on like MLB Network, and it's like everyone has moved on and forgotten about this. But so again, back to kind of freeing up capital, the seller turned 500 into 15,500 and doesn't have to wait 2 more months basically to find out if it would have won.
Yeah, Rob Manfred's a clown. That's also a topic for another podcast, but just some of the decisions he's made. However, we did talk about the rule changes, and before the season started, we were both very much in favor of a lot of different rule changes this year, and it has worked. So I will give him credit where credit is due. That was absolutely the proper decision to make a bunch of those rule changes, pitch clock, bigger bases, etc. But yeah, back to the Cy Young. How about Spencer Strider? Spencer Strider is now 100-1. Like, what a drop in odds for a guy that of course is playing for the best team in baseball, and just bad August. Really is what kind of did him in. And I think he pitched in September once or twice and had a bad outing. But and then Justin Steele went the exact other way. Justin Steele was 100-1 earlier this season, the Cubs starter, and he's making a push here. He's down to +220. I've even seen him at 2-1 over the past couple of weeks. So we will see this. This is coming down to the wire between the Padres and the Cubs, the horses.
Yeah. So a couple things. One, I haven't said it recently in this podcast, but I know I've said it before. When it comes to player awards and especially baseball, but really any player awards, like not all months are created equal. Okay.
Yes.
it is unfairly weighted towards what you do in the last month of the season than versus June or July. Obviously, these are humans voting on these awards, so like that those biases play in. But yeah, Strider last week got rocked by the Cardinals, and I believe I sent this to you. It was the biggest like money line favorite to lose. Like so, the Braves that day, that was the biggest favorite to lose all MLB season, and it was Strider getting rocked. And so, yeah, Strider was like 5.5 to 1 before that game, and then before he even made his next start, he was down to 100 to 1. So, one bad start can just completely take you out of the race. Now, again, he was the third. He was third out of those three, Snell, Steele, and Strider. So it's not like he went from favorite to 100 to 1, but still 5.5 to 1 to 100 to 1 after one start just goes to show you that like these starts down the stretch can be make or break. And so I totally get how the sellers like, look, like Snell's pitched lights out the last couple of months, but if he has one bad start and everyone's looking at him, this thing could drop drastically in value. And then you mentioned Justin Steele. I mean, I actually have it written down that he was 200 to 1 before the season, and then his odds bounced around basically between 10 to 1 and 30 to 1 from May until late August. On August 29th, Justin Steele was 27 to 1. And then since then, he has an ERA of 0.43 and 26 strikeouts in 3 starts since August 29th. And like you said, he is now currently the second favorite at plus 180. So, he's, I mean, like, talk about
what else do you have to do? Yeah. Like it's to your point, like these starts are unfairly weighted, and that's as good as it gets in the starts that are counting the most. So,
yeah. And it also it definitely helps to be playing impactful, important baseball. Obviously, I mean the Padres could be out of it, but the Cubs are definitely playing. The Cubs are already playing playoff baseball right now to try and get that wild card spot. So definitely going to be an interesting thing to follow. But yeah, again, you can't drop any better than that. Turning $500 into over $15,000, and then as that buyer getting minus 155, which was the best price in the world compared to minus 195. It's exactly what we're here for. And then thought we would, before we get into stake or swap, talk a little NFL. Week 1 in the books. Just quickly, what were some of your thoughts on the first week of NFL action?
I'll start with sad news. I am, of course, a Bears fan. We suck again, using a quote from the Waterboy. Yeah, it's one thing to lose a big game early, just to lose to your division rival, of course, the Packers, and having to deal with Aaron Rodgers for 16 years up there. And now Jordan Love comes in and like his second start, just had an excellent game. I thought he looked really, really sharp, and I was down on him. That game answered 2 questions. One, will the Packers be improved or be sufficient without number 12 leaving? Seems like the answer is yes. Do the Bears have a revamped offense where Justin Fields can throw downfield? That answer is no. So really frustrating to be a Bears fan. It's not looking good at all. Now the silver lining is the Vikings looked horrendous as well. You lose to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are the second lowest odds that had the least regular season wins going into the season. That's brutal. So if there's any silver lining, a team that they'll have to compete for the division looked terrible. Of course, the Lions looked sharp enough on Thursday night, beating Kansas City. Of course, no Chelsea, no Kelsey, no Chris Jones, but win's a win in the NFL, like Collinsworth said. And yeah, I mean, we've been selling tons of Packers tickets. Packers odds went from 66 to 1 to 40 to 1 in one game. I mean, huge shift to beat a quote unquote lowly Bears team.
Yeah. I gave out Packers last week on stake or swap. Again, I'm not sure what you could swap a Bears ticket for, but I swapped the Bears. I never bought into this hype. I know a lot of people thought that they would be this really improved team. They improved the roster, DJ Moore, and I just wasn't buying it for 1 second. And I thought just the Packers overall just had a better roster. And so I texted you on Sunday. I bet the Packers. I bet with my my head, not my heart. I bet the Packers to beat the Bears. That was a blowout. Like I said, and last week I wanted to give out, Packers most regular season wins at 80-1. They were 20. I want to say they were like 27-1 to be the number one seed in the NFC. Again, that's still a long shot to go, but I was very bullish on the Packers this year, kind of exceeding expectations. But one of my takeaways, though, was the 49ers, because that game, from everything I read, was what they call a pros versus Joes game, where all of the sharp bettors, professional bettors, were taking Pittsburgh, saying that, Pittsburgh, I don't know, they were live, against this game, and the Brock Purdy just looked so comfortable back there, and they just absolutely just dismantled the Steelers. I get the Steelers don't have as much of a home field advantage like this early in the season, but still, like that's a lot to. That's a very impressive win for them to just go in there, and just the top of the NFC just looks really good. I mean, the 49ers, the Cowboys, absolutely just demolished the Giants. That defense is incredible. Dak Prescott didn't have to really do anything, just, not turn the ball over. And so, and then like you said, the Lions, they could be good too. That's still an impressive win to go into KC against that crowd and pull out that win, coming back from down a touchdown at halftime. So, those were kind of my thoughts. Eagles, ugly win, but a win's a win. I think the Patriots are a good defense. And so, I wouldn't take that, to be like, oh, like these should, the fact that they let the Patriots back in, like I think the Patriots could be a good team, definitely a great defense. And so I think it's always a good sign when a team can win ugly,
Yep. Yeah. Eagles look good enough. Jalen Hurts had a costly fumble at the end of the game. He needs to hold on to the ball better. Tony Romo said it, like, to me, that's going to be an injury thing. Like, if the Eagles can stay healthy, they'll be right in the mix. If they can't stay healthy, they're going to have some trouble. So a little bit older offensive line. So that's kind of the Eagles story. But look, the Pats hung around. So good for them for making it a football game.
Yeah. So I don't know. I guess, my main thing from takeaways are I will keep back in the Packers this year. I would not put too much stock into the Patriots loss. And then just the last one, don't get misled by that Falcons-Panthers score, 24-10. The Falcons, I thought, were not good. And that I think that score is a little misleading. And so Desmond Ridder, I do not think is that guy. And so that only just gives me more confidence in my whole backing of the Saints in the NFC South. And so I would not get too fooled by that score. And then
small counterpoint on that. The odds did move on the Falcons down to 40-1. Falcons are at FanDuel. They were 80-1 before last week.
Yeah. I think that score is misleading. And then, also don't get fooled by that Commanders win the game. That game was close the entire time. Everyone was saying that, Cardinals are one of the historically bad teams, and the fact that they were able to hang in with the Commanders, and obviously the Cardinals covered that spread. So it was a 7-point spread, but I do not read into, Commanders are 1-0 and they're somehow going to be different. I do not like that team either this year.
Agreed.
Still a great week one. NFL kind of never ceases to disappoint. Super excited about the YouTube TV deal. I think I've put my complaining in last year about DirecTV and how bad that was, and so I'm stoked to be able to have the quad box. And there's one of the things on if you had like traditional DirecTV and you had the quad box, the quad box channel, it had like ads going up and down like the left side, and it didn't make the game as big as it could be, and so and no technical issues. I had huge amount of technical issues streaming Sunday Ticket last year through DirecTV. So I feel like I'll be watching more football than ever, being able to have a reliable way of watching 4 games at one time, and really anywhere, taking it anywhere I go. So I'm super excited about that development as well.
It's great. Leave it at Google to make a good technology product. Shocking.
Yeah, totally. Just leave it, give Amazon Thursday Night Football, give YouTube Sunday Ticket, let Apple get into this, somehow. And yeah, I mean, the rich get richer, but I would much rather count on the new tech companies than the legacy tech companies to figure this out.
Yeah, and it's not like they're going to low bid the NFL. Plenty of capital to submit a high bid for the rights of that. So NFL will make out just fine.
Yeah, and I thought to myself the other day, I'm like, how much money is Google spending on advertising? Because I have seen so many advertisements and so many promotions for Sunday Ticket. So they are not sparing expense for this first foray into it. But then, all right. So before we get into Sticker Swap, it is that time of the show, trivia time. Working title: Luke learns. I'm still working it out because I knew this was gonna be difficult, and so if nothing else, Luke will learn something trivia related. So
it's fine. If the audience learns too, I'm happy.
Yeah, no, and I hope that this is fun for people playing along too. So all right, here we go. Rams rookie Puka Nacua. I know I'm probably gonna mess it up, but Rams rookie Puka Nacua had 10 receptions for 119 receiving yards on Sunday. He became the fourth player in NFL history to have 10 plus receptions and 100 plus receiving yards in his first career game. Now, I'm not going to ask you who the other three are. That would be too difficult, but it got me thinking, who holds the record for most receiving yards in a game by a rookie? Who holds the record for most?
I guess it'd be Randy Moss.
That is incorrect. I'll give you a hint. This was within the last couple of years. This was during the 01-02 season.
Calvin Johnson?
No, sorry. The 2021, 2022. Sorry, the 21-22 season. Sorry, I messed that up.
Jamar Chase?
That is correct. Jamar Chase, January 2nd, 2022, against the Kansas City Chiefs. It was like over 250 receiving yards. Number two is a guy I never heard of, from like the 40s, and then number three is Jerry Rice. So pretty good company. But yes, Jamar Chase holds the record for most receiving yards in a game by a rookie. So yeah, great job.
Rams look great to do it without Cooper Kupp too. Really good start.
Yeah, the Rams pulling that out, but Bengals did good. Joe Burrow and Chase did not look great week one. So now it is time to get into Stake or Swap. First up, sticking on Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow, we're going to talk a little MVP odds. Joe Burrow now down to 10-1 to win MVP. He was 7-1 earlier, before week one. I will go first. I am staking Joe Burrow 10-1 to win MVP. This is easy. He did not play in the preseason, and they looked awful week one against the Browns. The Browns have a good defense. I mean, Myles Garrett was wreaking havoc, but this just goes to show, like, if you don't play in the preseason, your week one looked like a preseason game, and they were 0-2 last year to start the season, and I just have the utmost confidence that they will figure this out, and that these odds will get lower, and you'll be able to make some money on this. I'm not saying he's going to win MVP, but I think 10-1 on someone who was 6-1, 7-1 a week ago is good value, and do not read too much into their week one loss. So I am staking Burrow 10-1 to win MVP.
Completely agree. I'll stake Joe Burrow to win MVP as well. I was asked this weekend, like I mentioned, was on a culture which a ton of sports bettors, and they asked me what my Super Bowl pick was, and I think it's Bengals Eagles. And also had a buddy at the Browns game, and I was just texting him like, how's it going, blah blah blah. He's like, take the under, this weather is awful. He told me to take the under like 5 minutes into the first quarter. and like it was terrible weather. It didn't really come across on the broadcast, but he's like, it's bad. Like go low on the total. So really bad weather in Cleveland. He's got a problem with Cleveland. Joe Burrow does. I think he's like 1-5 now against the Browns. Like he just can't figure that team out. So yeah, not freaking out about the Bengals. Like you said, no preseason, horrible weather, good pass rush. Browns defense is fine, but yeah, the Browns. Myles Garrett is obviously an absolute monster. He's the leader lowest odds to be the sack leader. So yeah, not freaking out. Totally agree. Stick Burrow.
All right, we agree there. Let's see if we agree on the next one. Sticking on MVP, Tua Tagovailoa had a fantastic game. I think 430 some odd passing yards against the Chargers. He is now 7-1 to win MVP. He was 20-1 a week ago, but now he is one of the top 3 or 4 favorites. 7-1 to win MVP. Luke, we'll start with you first. Are you staking or swapping Tua to win MVP?
Swapping Tua to an MVP. I have so much injury concern with this man. I do not wish injury concern upon anyone, but like he is one tackle away. I feel like he's like Reggie Ray from Varsity Blues. Like he is one play away from having another concussion that ends his career. So I just, for him to be the favorite after one football game with 16 more to go, like I don't see it. He's good. I like the Dolphins offense. Love McDaniels, but yeah, don't see it. I would swap to it.
I agree. I would swap Tua as well. And again, it's about injury risk, and kind of to the same point I was talking about Texas earlier, where they were 25-1, now they're 10-1. Like there's not that much incremental upside you can have so far, right? Like, you are basically going to be sweating, 15, 16 more games where you just pray that he stays healthy, or if he does get hurt, it's like for one game. Hurts missed like 2 games there at the end, due to injury / he didn't really need the games, and that cost him, the MVP there, right? So it's like, there's just too much risk for him, missing games due to concussion or any other injury like a quarterback could have. Obviously, we'll know more about Aaron Rodgers and the extent of his injury in the coming days, but if you got 20-1 and now you can make almost triple your money, I say just take that money, right now and reinvest in some other stuff, because you're just going to be sweating every game that he doesn't get hurt. So I agree. I think we're in agreement on both. Stake Joe Burrow right now and swap Tua.
It's rare.
Yeah. So that will do it for this week's episode of the PropSwap podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please make sure to subscribe, leave a rating, and we will talk to you next week.